Through the years, women have been underrated. They were expected to get married, have kids, and stay home while their husband went out and worked. That isn't that bad, right? Well, in 1769, the colonies based their law on the English common law, which basically stated that the undermarried men get the right over everything while their wives' legal existence is suspended. Then in 1777, there was a law passed that took away women's right to vote.
But finally, Friday, July 20, 1848, there was a convention held in Seneca Falls, New York. Both men and women went to this convention and made a declaration that contained requests or resolutions for equality. This meeting has the first to have many people attend. Elizabeth Cady Stenson, one of the organizers, was surprised by how many people attended the convention. Then, in 1873, the Supreme Court has ruled that states have the right to exclude unmarried women from practicing the law. 2 years later, they also declared the states have the power to prevent a woman from voting. Although it seemed like women were going backwards instead of forwards, the Civil War opened many doors to women getting jobs. For example, one of those jobs was nursing injured men during the battle.
Susan B. Anthony worked tirelessly to get Congress to pass a woman's right to vote amendment to the United States Constitution. Also, Elizabeth Cady Stenson and Susan B. Anthony formed the Suffrage Association. Along with Elizabeth Cady Stenson, Lucretia Mott organized the Women's Right Convention in Seneca Falls, New York.
Women were not allowed to vote after the United States Constitution was ratified. Over the 75 years following the Seneca Falls Convention, tens of thousands of women worked hard for suffrage. These women are putting up suffrage posters in New Jersey between 1914 and 1920.
Women have been fighting for approximately 70 years. In 1869, with slavery abolished, a rift developed in the suffrage movement over how to gain suffrage. Anthony and Stenson founded the National Women's Suffrage Association and campaigned for a constitutional amendment in America and other women's rights, such as changes in divorce laws and an end to employment and pay discrimination.
Lucy Stone, Julia Ward, and Howe formed the Less Racial American Women's Suffrage Association to focus on obtaining suffrage for black men with the 14th and 15th Amendment and on winning women's rights to vote state by state, ignoring the broader rights to National Women's Suffrage Association was campaigning for.
By the 1880s, it became clear that the two organizations would be more effective if they merged back into one group, so they formed the National American Women's Suffrage Association in 1890, with Stenson as president and Anthony as vice president. Stenson's position was largely honorary. She departed on a 2-year European-speaking tour shortly after being elected, leaving Anthony as acting president. The National American Women's Suffrage Association was a national parent organization to hundreds of local groups that campaigned for women's rights to vote. In the early 20th century, the National American Women's Suffrage Association restructured itself and shifted its tactic, recruiting celebrities to draw attention to the cause, aligning with local women's clubs and labor unions, and raising money to train and pay organizers to canvass for votes and enlist new members. The National American Women's Suffrage Association held many parades and rallies to draw attention to their cause, with its members wearing white uniforms and carrying banners to draw crowds and reporters.
In 1914, Alice Paul and Lucy Burns became dissatisfied with the leadership and direction of National Women's Suffrage Association and formed a congressional union. Both women had assisted and learned from the British suffrage movement, which was much more radicalized and militant than the National Women's Suffrage Association. England's more militant suffragists faced violent confrontations and authorities and jail sentences. Some went on huger strikes while imprisoned and were made to endure forced feeding to prevent them from dying behind bars, which might increase public sympathy for their case.
Women's right to vote was achieved throughout the national and local efforts of both the National American Women's Suffrage Association and the National Woman's Party. With the ratification of the 19th Amendment in sight, Chapman Catt formed the League of Women Voters during the last National American Women's Suffrage Association meeting, which was on February 14, 1920, to help newly women exercise the right to vote. In the 1900s, women's got a win. All the states allowed a woman to have some control over their properties. Finally, in 1920, women's got a big win, the 19th Amendment. After many protests, women finally got the right to vote.